Here from the Pearl River Resort Studios, visit pearlriverresort.com. Pearl River Resort, the home of the Golden Moon and the Silver Star Casinos. And, of course, Dancing Rabbit Golf Club. Visit them online at pearlriverresort.com. Happy to welcome in my friend and broadcast partner, Harry Harrison. He's the color analyst on the Ole Miss Radio Network, former All-American at Ole Miss. Richard Cross, Brian Haydad with you. Michael Borky's off. Got Will East in for him. What's up, my man?
Man, it's all good, Richard. I've got a little history with the Pearl River Resort myself.
I saw you perk up when I mentioned the Pearl River Resort Studios.
Opened the Silver Star Casino in 1995. Played the first round of golf at Dancing Rabbit.
Really?
Yeah. Hit it first time I hit it around there. It wasn't completely finished, but it was finished enough we could get the first round in on the Azalea course, which was the original course, of course. Yeah. And, it was a lot of fun. Had 10 good years there. We
will be there not next week, but the week after. So on January 10th for the national championship game. Of course, they've got the sports book now at the casino, and they've done a really good job over there. And that golf course, both golf courses, just outstanding.
They are, Richard. I have not played it since they've changed the bent over to the Bermuda,
Champions Bermuda
on the old course. But I mean, the course was just unbelievable. Even in the summer with the bent on it, you could still play and have a good time.
Yeah.
Kind of a little toasty on the old course because of all the big trees, all the wooded areas. But playing in spring and fall, you couldn't get any better than that.
When the azaleas are popping over there, I mean, it's special.
It is. It is a very, very well planned out. Everything was done. Fazio did it outright.
Yeah. Also special playing in the Sugar Bowl.
10th time the Ole Miss Rebels are in the Sugar Bowl. Let that sink in a minute. Now, it's in the history of the school. I get it. And we had a big run back in the 60s, in the 50s. But that's the 10th time we're going to the Sugar Bowl, and that's pretty special, man.
Yeah. Short window between the most recent trip to New Orleans and this one, but prior to that, it had been, 46 years?
That's right, 1970. January 1st, 1970, I was there for that game. Archie Manning and company playing the Arkansas Razorbacks. Arkansas was ranked higher, of course, than Ole Miss, but Ole Miss came out of the gate that day. I think we're up 14-0 quickly, and then held on for 27-22. I think Arkansas was driving, if I remember correctly.
That one was at Old Tulane Stadium,
Old Tulane Stadium, that's correct. That is correct. It was loud and 80,000 folks.
Yeah. One of the neat things I think about this year's game, and I feel like there's an asterisk that we're putting on everything with another bowl game canceled today, but it does appear as if both Ole Miss and Baylor are in pretty good shape from a roster standpoint going into this game. There are going to be a lot of Ole Miss fans there.
A lot. I mean, everybody I talked to one of my customers up in Olive Branch, and then one over at Hernando today. Her daughter's going. These are folks I insure, of course, and her daughter and husband are going. I mean, everywhere you turn, people have run into a couple people in the Kroger earlier today. Yeah. What day are you going to leave? That's the big question. What day are you leaving? So there's a ton of Ole Miss fans going down there. And let's hope. I mean, from an Ole Miss standpoint, COVID is really under control. They've done that. They had 3 or 4 kids, or maybe 5 out last week. They've already cleared that protocol, and they're back out there practicing. So from an Ole Miss standpoint, we're in good shape. You can only hope that Baylor is, and so we get this game played on Saturday night.
And, hey, Dad, I'll press pause here just for a second. I just saw the clip of Mike Leach getting off the bus in Memphis. Obviously, this game is going forward. Have you heard anything else or any more messages coming in to you with regard to Mississippi State in terms of who may or may not be available?
Reached out to a source, and I haven't been able to get anything back. So we'll just have to wait and see. We'll see the starting lineups when they announce them.
Yeah, I guess we're getting pretty close at this point, right? I mean, they've got probably guys here before long out on the field for warm-ups, and we'll know.
Yeah, you would think so.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to keep an update on that as we get set for Mississippi State and Texas Tech coming up at 5:45. Harry, in terms of the matchup, when you look at Ole Miss against Baylor, Ole Miss first 10-win season in the regular season in school history. Baylor's coming in with 11 wins, and they were, a whisker away from, it was Oklahoma State that was a whisker away from winning the Big 12 championship game. That's an 11-win season that includes a Big 12 championship, this is a good Baylor team.
It is a good Baylor team, Richard. Defensively, which is kind of where they hang their hat. Ron Roberts is the defensive coordinator. At one time was the head coach over at Delta State.
Yeah.
And so he's there. We've seen this defensive alignment from lots of different teams here in the SEC. 3 down linemen. They call it a jack, outside linebacker, DM, but he's going to rush each and every time. I mean, they may bend him and they may curl him around, but he's going to be basically a pass rusher. So you're going to get a 4-man rush just about every time. But we've seen that. Obviously, 2 inside backers, and they're going to play with 5 DBs. So the Rebels have seen that, and what we got to do is obviously get back in that rhythm, get this offense going, and not let them substitute. They do a good job of bringing in new defensive linemen. They've got about 6 guys. They play pretty regularly. But if you get this offense going and your tempo is where we make our money, then obviously they're not going to be able to get those guys in there unless they call timeout or somebody fakes an injury, as we know certainly can happen.
I've seen that a time or two this year. Sometimes for the guys that are wearing red jerseys or blue jerseys or whatnot. So the 3-man front versus the 4-man front. I mean, I know there are a lot of people that talk about odd versus even, and, is there one personnel grouping or another that is easier for an offense to have success against?
Well, the different groupings will determine what type plays you're going to run. Obviously, if you got a 4-man front, play right up the middle. I know at Tennessee, Matt Corral ran a ton of quarterback draws, if you remember that game. And they had an even front, 4-man front. So you just take those 2 inside guards and take those defensive tackles, turn them out. You got a big lane right there, okay? And so Rebels had really feasted well that day with Matt Corral running that. You get a 3-man front, then you got a nose tackle, okay? That plays out. But then you think you get on the outside, but you got those outside backers or those outside nickel backs that are going to walk up. So different formations, whether it be 4-man or 3-man, are going to tell you exactly what type plays you can run. Can you get on the outside? And if the Rebels could get on the outside, whether it be toss out to our running backs or whether we run the sweeps, then we're going to have a good day.
So this defense for Ole Miss, while we're on the defensive side of the ball in terms of the conversation, changed post Arkansas, right? Gave up 51, but got the win against Arkansas. Arkansas had the ball in the air with a chance to win the ball game. But they were different after that. I don't know that schematically they were doing a ton that was different. What allowed them to change?
I think they started gambling. I think obviously Springer, number 1, coming back, and he played a terrific game against Louisville in the first game at Atlanta, and then he knocked his shoulder down, and that's just kind of football terms. But anyway, whatever he did to his shoulder, just didn't respond. I mean, it took weeks and weeks and weeks, and finally he didn't get back until that Tennessee game, which was the week after Arkansas, and you saw a tremendous improvement from that pass rush, from tackling behind the line of scrimmage. He probably had 3 or 4 tackles behind the line of scrimmage that night. That one guy certainly helped. And I did a little math before I came over. The defensive, they had all got together and said, hey, we want to average giving up only 21 points a game. Well, we gave up 51 to Arkansas. We gave up 42 to Alabama. Gave up 31 to Auburn, but they still averaged 25 points. Haven't given that was the team. If you take the 12 games and divide it up, what the total points, and they gave up 25 points a game. So they didn't reach their goal, but they were so much closer than last year. Because last year, what was it, 38, 40 points a game we were giving up. Just tried to outscore everybody. So this year you got 2 sides of the ball that are contributing.
And I guess when you talk about gambling more post Arkansas, if you look at the games they played down the stretch, then you probably get to that average or maybe even a good bit better.
Absolutely.
But because then you take out the loss to Alabama and the 51 that they gave up to Arkansas.
Yeah, if you could take those out, they certainly would have hit that number. But obviously you can't take those 2 out. But, yeah, down the stretch, LSU, I think, scored 17. Mississippi State, 21. Vanderbilt 17.
Gave up 31 to Auburn.
31 to Auburn. It's kind of a hiccup over there. A weird setup for Ole Miss. I really thought we were a better team. Matt Corral was playing on one leg. We had 2 receivers, key receivers out, and then our third one gets hurt in that game and just had nobody to go to. So it it turned out to be a bad night for Ole Miss. We lost the football game.
Hey, Dad and I were talking about that earlier. He said, if you could play that game 10 times more, it feels like Ole Miss might win 9 or 10
That's
of
correct.
those.
That's correct.
But on that particular night, it did not. Right. Harry, offensively, visiting with Harry Harrison, color analyst on the Ole Miss Radio Network and former All-American at Ole Miss. Offensively, when you look at what Ole Miss is doing, it appears as if they are healthy and really kind of fully healthy for the first time since going into Knoxville, right? Or really maybe earlier than that?
Not because we lost number one, our wide receiver Jonathan Mingo, after the Tulane game. So it's really the only time we've been healthy since the very first game. So this is as healthy as Ole Miss has been since the opening of the season. And so we got all three of those receivers back. Obviously, in the interim, John Rice Plumlee filled in very admirably. Jacour Pearson filled in admirably. And I tell you who's really made a difference in that offense since we've come in, Richard, is Casey Kelly, our tight end. Obviously, Casey, if you know his story, caught 6 balls and a touchdown last year in the bowl game in Tampa.
Right. Went
out with some buddies out to Colorado in January, hit a tree, tears his ACL, MCL, comes back in the middle of September, starts practicing. That's pretty quick recovery. So it was a great surgery by somebody out in Colorado. Didn't come back here to have a surgery. Had it done out there by a reputable guy. But by the middle of September, he's back practicing. Has been really been the best tight end we've had all fall. And I got a feeling we're going to target him some Saturday night also.
Programming note: we've got a conversation with Chad Kelly coming up in the 5 o'clock hour today. We'll do that at 5:20. Today, so you get a chance to hear from former Ole Miss quarterback Chad Kelly, some Sugar Bowl memories from him, some thoughts on kind of where he is in the football landscape. Really, some good stuff. So that's coming up a little bit later this afternoon. What's going to be your lasting memory of Matt Corral?
A guy that let's go back to the 2019 season when they threw him in at the end of the Egg Bowl, played in Oxford.
Yeah,
and.
That's when he thought it was a good idea to punch people with a helmet on.
Gets down there to defend A.J. Brown in the end zone, and I think at that point college football got his attention that night. And so he comes back last year in obviously a weird situation. Don't have spring practice, COVID, can't use the football in the middle of summer, all those crazy rules, and really has a good year, and he just catapults off of that into this season, Richard.
Wait, that would have been the end of the 18 season in the Egg Bowl, right? Because 19 was the year that he
that's
ends
correct.
up
That's correct.
Getting benched for Plumlee.
That's correct.
After
you're
injury.
Right. That's the end of the 18 season. And I think the player that he had the semi-fisticuff with was the talented safety from Mississippi State who's playing for Las Vegas now. And you'll have to.
Hey, Dad, help me out.
Jamal Peters.
No,
I'm right.
I thought it was the kid who played down at Jones. He signed with Georgia originally, went to Jones Junior College, and then played at Mississippi State 2 years from Columbia, Mississippi. That wasn't Jamal Peters. He was from Bassfield or somewhere. But anyway, this guy, I was thinking it was him.
But Peters is the one that Corral got tied up with. Hey, Dad,
gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was the end of the 18th season. 19, comes back, and we got a different coordinator in Rich Rod, and it was a run-first option. John Rice Plumlee has an unbelievable year. And he got to sit over there until the end of the state game when we desperately needed to throw the football, and he came in and drove us down there to hopefully tie the game up. Of course, we all know how that ended. And then 2020 rolls around with a new coaching staff, a new idea of offense, and Matt kind of took off with it. I mean, really, he and Levy really, hit it off. He and Kiffin, and that particular offense, which we're obviously right in the middle of, it really suited him very well, and he's just taken off with it.
Yeah. I still think, and maybe this is a storyline that has been beaten to death at this point, but when you think about a Lane Kiffin offense, you think about throwing the football. And yet the reality is it's been pretty run-heavy offense for 2 years, back-to-back years leading the SEC in rushing.
That's correct. I mean, even me, sometimes when I discuss our offense, you think throw, but really not. I mean, really not. You're right, Richard. 3 good running backs in that backfield, including Matt. I mean, when we got 4 guys, I think the only team in the country with 4 people over 500 yards rushing, including Matt Corral.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's that's pretty significant when you go in a game like this. And so what does that do? That sets up play action for you, and pulls those linebackers in. You throw over the top of them. We've got a receivers, averaging 23 or plus yards over the top. Braylon Sanders. You got Mingo, who they get a lot of passes out to, just runs over corners. And then you got Dontario Drummond runs a lot of crossing routes. Three really, really good ones. And then mix in Casey Kelly and Matt Corral and the three running backs. And we won't go through all those, but, Ely and Snoop. It's a good combination.
Historically, or some historical perspective, you and I were talking about this earlier today. So you said 4 Ole Miss running backs with over 500 yards, including Matt Corral at the quarterback spot. If you go back to 1959 or 60, whichever it was.
60. When
Jake Gibbs was the offensive player in the SEC, he had how many total yards?
480, I believe, total. That's passing and running. Jeez. Matt Corral's going to have over 4,000 this year.
Yeah, but you got 4 guys in the backfield who had more yards from scrimmage than so game has changed a little bit. All right, story time. Peach Bowl 1970.
Peach Bowl 1971. We were in Sugar Bowl in 70. Peach Bowl 1971.
That was the first year you played, right?
First year. Go back to 1970. I'm the last class. My class is the last one off the Johnny Vault era. We were the last class he signed. In 1970, we still had freshman teams. Eddie Crawford was our head freshman coach. Couldn't play with the varsity. And really and truly, Richard, in those days, weight training was in its infancy. Everything that we know today we just take for granted was so new that some kid coming out of high school was just, unless he was just country strong, which I wasn't, you had to get in a weight program. Didn't do that till I got here, of course. I don't think my high school owned a weight. So, yeah, seriously, go back to 1970.
So had you been eligible, you don't think you would have played or certainly started as a freshman?
No. Okay. I do not. Absolutely not. Weighed about 182 or 3 pounds, 6'2", skinny kid from down in South Mississippi. I just don't think I would have cracked any, maybe special teams, but I don't think so. That was a good group. Archie Manning's class obviously had a lot of veterans in that class. And so, but the point is, they won the 1970 Sugar Bowl. We played in the 1971 Peach Bowl. So that whole group is gone. Guys like Paul Dongier were seniors that year. Elmer Allen were seniors that year. Preston Carpenter, Crowell Armstrong, they were all seniors. We had a really good freshman class. We had a lot of talent in that class. We were sophomores that year. And so, but what happens? Vault in 1970, after the Southern Miss upset here in Oxford, Ole Miss ranked 4th in the country, gets beat by Southern Miss on a Saturday. Vault goes home that night and has some sort of heart ailment. I don't know if it was a heart attack or what it was, but I told him he lived to be 96, and I played golf with him in a tournament when he was 92, and I said, Coach, I don't know what kind of heart problem you had, but I wish it on all of us. I mean, he was 92 and playing golf. So
30 years later, still kicking.
And so he comes back. So, and all Ole Miss fans know the story, and part half of Mississippi State also, but we get Bruiser Kennard gets himself made athletic director, and he hires his brother, Billy Kennard. The guy that I thought was going to be the head coach here at Ole Miss, who actually recruited me to come here, was a guy named Bob Tyler, which obviously went to Mississippi State later as the head coach.
Just one of the kindest men you'll ever meet in your life.
Great guy. Still, see him occasionally. He lives down at Water Valley. He's gotten up into age, of course, but just a great guy and a great football coach and a really good recruiter.
All right, so the story that I've always heard, and not the Kennard side of that, but that Bob Tyler was basically John Vaught's chosen successor, and the pieces were in place for that to just kind of move forward with no drama, without a hitch, and a lot of people felt like things would continue to move in the direction they had under Coach Vaught, and then the whole thing just kind of blew up.
Well, it changed for sure, and I have to agree with what you just said. Yes, that was my interpretation of that, and that's one of the reasons I came here. But, and then Bruiser, obviously when Vaught stepped down in the middle of that season in 70, Bruiser was the assistant head coach, so he takes over the reins of that. And then, give the man credit. He was Ole Miss's original All-American, very first one. In the NFL Hall of Fame, they tell me, I've never been to the NFL Hall of Fame, but they tell me if you walk in the front door of Canton, one of the first people you see is Bruiser Kennard. So he had a lot of connections, right? And so he's the athletic director, and, it's one of those situations where you never hire somebody you can't fire. and he hired his brother, and it unfortunately didn't work out. And
they ended up both getting fired, right?
They ended up both getting fired on a Monday night of my senior year. Coach Vaught comes back. Yeah. It's so I got to see the bright side and the dark side of life.
Give me one thought. We got 30 seconds on the Sugar Bowl. Ole Miss and Baylor.
I like the Rebels. I like our offense. I like our tempo. Baylor's defense is obviously going to come to play with some talent. Jerry Bohannon is not a guy that's going to beat you with his arm, although he's got some weapons outside. I think it's going to be more of a run downhill offense. They're going to try to run it at you. Obviously, Ole Miss got better at that at the season's end. I like the Rebels 35-24.
All right. Harry Harrison, former All-American at Ole Miss, color analyst. Look forward to seeing you in New Orleans.
I can't wait. It'll be fun.
Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
Harry Harrison with us on the Farm Bureau phone line, or at least he would be if he was on the phone, in studio with us. Farm Bureau phone line. Check out favorites.com and go with the home team at Mississippi Farm Bureau.